So, as Howard has already said, I actually work for Voluntary Norfolk, and I'm the head of support services. So I work across Charismatic Norfolk, the adult support service, the separate young carers and families service, and Better Together, our loneliness and isolation. But obviously here just to talk about young carers. So I haven't actually built into my presentation about who a young carer is. But just to give you a sense, a young carer is any person under the age of 18 who cares or supports for either a member of their family or it could be a close friend of the family. And when we say support, we don't just mean the traditional physical care needs that some people might build up in their head as a carer, that it actually may be that a lot of young carers are in that position because they are worrying about a parent's mental health or emotional well-being, or that they're actually being placed in a position where they are supporting quite high-level mental health needs. I've spoken to quite a few young people of a very young age, actually, 8 or even younger, who are quite heavily responsible for supporting mum or dad going through mental health crises, substance misuse difficulties, and they are placed in the position of being the adult in the relationship and supporting those people. So please don't think of the traditional model of care, that actually widen it for young people providing emotional support or worrying about their parent. So we started the service just under 3 years ago with the full intention of supporting these young carers and their families and actually trying to remove or reduce the caring situation from the family. So a lot of our work is done looking at the cared for person's needs, because actually if we can get the services in to support them, then we can remove the caring from the young person. But we also do a lot of work with the young carer, looking at giving them a bit of childhood back, giving them, their time to build relationships with other young people, trying to help them achieve what they want to achieve in life, whatever their hopes and dreams are. And I know I've sort of gone a bit off piste from the presentation, but it's just 'cause it's just a huge passion of mine. But speaking as I do sometimes on the helpline, I speak to some young people and their families, and I say to mum, you know, what do they want to be when they grow up? Because even if that's not actually what they will end up being when they grow up, but hearing their wishes and their hopes and their dreams. I've had people come through say, I want to be a ballet dancer, or I want, when the Olympics are on, I want to be like Lewis Smith and be an Olympic gymnast. And that's what we want to put back in for these young people. So I digress, but I will get back onto the presentation and tell you about what our service is and what our offering is. So hopefully this will work. So who are we? We're a partnership, first and foremost. So we've drawn across Norfolk to work with these superb organisations that already support young people and probably support young carers. So as Voluntary Norfolk, we're lead partner, and we provide an helpline or an advice line. Essentially, it's a triage and assessment for young people and their families entering the service. And we also provide family support workers who do the whole family work. We then work with our partners such as MTM in South and Breckland, Benjamin Foundation in Norwich, Broadland and part of the North, West Norfolk Carers over in the West, Caring Together, who help us a lot with our awareness raising. And I know Eloise is here. We work particularly with Belinda Jones. So with that, we're going into schools and educating schools about what they can do to support young people. I work with Holt Youth Project in the north and Great Yarmouth and Galston Young Carers over in the east. And they, our delivery partners, essentially provide the one-to-one support for young carers and the activity sessions. So how do we do what we set out to do? So I've already spoken about our advice line. So we have a free phone advice line that professionals can refer direct into, that family members can, that young people can come to us direct. And we're at pains to say that if a young person wants to speak to us without having the person that they care or support with them, they can. Because some young people feel incredibly guilty or awkward about calling us and saying, I'm a young carer. I don't want to be a young carer. And disclosing things about who they care for. So we've always placed a huge value on the young person being able to talk to us one on one. We can also give out some information, some advice. We can help make referrals and signpost young people and their families. But at the hub of it is actually skilled helpline workers who will chat to the family about what's going on for them, about what the caring situation is, who else is in the wider network, and actually what do they want to get out of their time with us? What would work best for them? A decision will then be made from the advice line which way the family and the young person go. So we have our family intensive support service, which is where our family support workers will work with the entire family and any wider network. And this will be to have a look at actually what we can do to remove or reduce that caring. So they'll look at putting together a support plan. We'll have a chat about emergency plans for young carers. We'll see about what work we can do to help the school support. We'll link in the family and the young carer into other activities, other groups that might help them. But above all, we'll actually have a look at the person who needs the care and support and say, what do you need best to support you to enable your child, your young person, your children to have as normal a childhood as possible. You know, what can we do to best support? And that might be that actually what we need to do is have a chat to our colleagues in children's services or adult services and say, actually, can we have a look at a needs assessment? You know, this has been identified as would be a really big benefit, or that we might have a chat to another organisation and say, you know, actually, a bit of support, on a weekly basis for this person would just really help them. And obviously with our colleagues in the adult service, that if there are adult carers within the family, that we can talk to our colleagues and adults and say, can you do a care assessment? Can you have a look at what support you can give the adult carer? And just really develop those networks. And obviously, having a look at OT, welfare benefits. And we have had a few families that have come through where actually we've worked quite closely with housing agencies to actually say, this family's being totally unsuitable housing. Actually, the area that they're in is causing detriment to mental health. Let's get them up the list. Let's get them moving on a bit. And of course, we work a lot with Jill and Pip and other people within the trust who are carers leads. The other sort of way that young people can go is that we have our 3 to 6 month targeted program. And this is just for the young carer. So it's a place where they can sit down with a qualified youth worker, either at school or at home or at a cafe or somewhere, just to have that one-to-one support. It'll help them build confidence, self-esteem. We can give the guidance to them. We can really work through their feelings about being a young carer and how it impacts on them. Particularly important that we can help at transitions. So there's two really big key transitions for young carers. One is when they go from primary up to secondary. We're finding that's been a really big transition because actually a lot of anxieties for young carers are, well, my current school knows that I have to keep my mobile phone on because mum might need just to have a chat with me or just to have a bit of support, or I might just need to check up on mum, make sure she's took her meds or see how she's doing. And the primary school have got that to a T. They're there. Teachers are fine with it. They've got a solution to help support that young person. But then it comes to going up to secondary education. It's what's going to happen? What's going to happen at high school? Is my form tutor going to have an understanding about what's going on? You know, actually, if I have my phone on in my lessons and it goes off, am I going to get detention? Or if I get detention, is it going to be at lunchtime or in the evening? So there's all these things going on. But then the other key transition point is really from 14 upwards when they're starting to look at adulthood. So it's, can I go to uni if I want to? Can I go to work if I want to? Actually, what's going to happen when I become an adult? You know, you're giving me all this support now as a young person. What's going to happen? So we help these young people plan for that transition, and that's so important for them. We also have regular group sessions that are provided by our delivery partners. And this is really the opportunity to meet other young carers, to take part in life skills, you know, learning cookery, learning different bits and pieces, having that bit of social time, but above all, have a bit of fun and play. You know, have that time that they can't have. Um, you know, we do the Reach for the Skies event every year, and normally it's a residential, but this year Howard contacted us all and said, right, Reach for the Skies this year, we're off to Pleasurewood Hills. And the young carers had a fabulous time over there. So it's about giving them back a bit of that chance to be kids. At the end of the 3 to 6 month programme, young carers don't just go off a cliff edge and just disappear. Young people and their families can re-enter the programme at any time. Changes, if somebody deteriorates or if there's a new part to their caring, they can come back into the programme. But also the aim is that because we're working towards removing that caring, that actually we exit young people into an appropriate programme. So it might be that where we realistically see that actually this young person's caring isn't going to reduce much, then we exit them into another young carers group. So Benjamin Foundation will exit into their boom groups. Terry over at Galston will exit into her main groups. Or we can look for community groups that might be available and that the young carer might have interest in. So the ultimate aim is that they go through to more mainstream, but if they can't, then we exit them through to other young carers groups. So no young carer should drop. We also have on our website access to the Self-Help Hub, and that's actually accessed through the adults website. But there's lots of bits and pieces on there for young carers as well. And as Howard said, he'll distribute these presentations later, so you'll be able to get the links for where to access it. And then finally, the other part of our service is that we do offer wellbeing workshops to young carers. So they're currently being done online. We offer 3 different types of wellbeing sessions. So we're looking at how to talk to professionals, mental health awareness, and particularly resilience during the COVID pandemic. These were all identified by young carers as things that they wanted to have. And response has been really great from young carers who've really found a huge benefit to it. And then we also bring through the voice of young carers. So this is where Caring Together come in, and they feed in views and influence the direction our service takes through the Young Carers Forum. And Belinda Jones, who actually works for Caring Together, helps us raise awareness and educates professionals and schools about young carers, about the challenges they face, about services that are out there and available. And also Belinda works with schools to encourage them to achieve the Carer Friendly Tick Award, and organisations such as NSFT can also obtain it. So then finally, on my very whistle-stop tour of our service, I've put on the presentation details of how to contact us. So you can call our free phone advice line, you can come through to us on email, or make a referral through our website. But you'll get all these details when Howard distributes all the PowerPoint presentations. So thank you very much.
Can I say that Suffolk Family Carers provides the young carers support in Suffolk?
Yes.
They're a lovely organisation. Reach for the Skies is one of my passions. We've done this for the last 4 or 5 years. We NSFT, from its charitable funds, we take a bunch of young kids away. We took 150 all to Ledgewood Hill. That was
Oh
quite
my
exhausting.
goodness.
But there we go. Thank you so much, Maria.
Thanks,
And
Howard.
stay with us till the
I
panel
will.
discussion. That would be fabulous. And we can turn around and take some questions and
Yeah.
what have you. Thank you so much, Maria. Right, everybody. So next on the list is going to be about carers' rights, and I believe Jill's going to do that for me.
So, hello everybody. I'm Jill. I'm actually a carers lead within NSFT, and because James is poorly, I sort of got the short straw a little bit to fill in on his presentation. So please bear with me a bit because, like I said, James has done this. He would have known it, and I'm going to do my best to be James. So, like I say, it won't be perhaps as proficient as James would done, but I'll give it a go. So, James is actually the operational business lead within for adult carers within Norfolk County Council, and so he's very hot on what legal rights carers have. So, next slide, please, Howard. So James has put together lots of statistics here, and the amazing one, the top one here, is that actually 1 in 8 of all adults become a carer at some point, and most commonly 3 in every 5 people as well. So it's a huge amount of people we're talking about. Every day, 6,000 people are taking on carer responsibilities. 58% of carers are women, 42% are men. And this bit I thought was really huge. 1.3 million people provide over 50 hours of care a week. And often they're doing that with no training, very little support at times. And some people will be claiming carers allowances and getting a small financial income, but many are doing that at their own expense too. So financial hardship can be huge. Um, James has also got on here about how locally carers provide such an essential role, and locally we couldn't manage without them. We have approximately 99,000 unpaid carers in Norfolk, but of course that are the only carers that we know about. So there are many hidden carers out there, people who don't recognise that term for themselves as being a carer. Um, Young carers particularly as well. And what we're hoping is that events like today will help people to understand that that word carer means being a significant other in somebody else's life. Somebody who, if somebody couldn't manage without your support, whatever level of support that is, you are likely to be a carer. So the bottom one of here is, you know, 500 million pounds worth of care these people provide. Huge amounts of money. Next, please, Howard. So, carers actually have legislation and rights within that legislation. Adult carers' rights are mainly in the Care Act, which came into force in 2014. And for adults that are caring for children, there's the Children and Families Act. And between these two pieces of legislation and some other bits that are out there too, carers have legal rights. Next, please, Howard. So, carers' first right is there is no obligation for them to be a carer. You know, they have a right to choose about this. Coercion or manipulation to do this role is actually illegal. Um, and there are often huge moral obligations on people to become carers. You know, they are somebody's, as their loved one, their mother, their father, their brother, sister, their partner, and actually they're thrown into this other role in their lives quite unexpectedly, and life can have a very different path once you become a carer and somebody with needs to what that your original relationship and pathway would have been. Next, please. So, what does this law say? The Care Act is predominantly about prevention. It recognises that when we support other people, we have needs of our own and we need to keep ourselves well, and that by supporting us better as carers, the cared people we're cared for have better outcomes, and we don't become unwell and need services ourselves. So the Care Act gives adult carers the right the right to support and protection from their local authority. Young carers and parent carers of children have protection under the Children and Families Act. Legislation that was in place prior to this was about giving local authorities and other services guidance about what they needed to do, and mainly said that we needed to give carers information, and there was no real firm duty to perform that. But these new pieces of legislation say that we have to do this for carers. The Care Act had unpaid carers involved in it, and that's where we think this thing about making sure that carers were protected in law was hugely promoted by those. As mentioned, the Care Acts give adult carers the right to receive support and protection from the local authority. And the main way of doing that is through a carer's assessment. Next, please, Howard. So, what is the carer's assessment and what should it include? The carer's assessment is carried out. Predominantly, it's the responsibility of county council. So in Norfolk, it's Norfolk County Council. In Suffolk, Suffolk County Council. But they can dedicate that responsibility. They can give that responsibility to other organisations as well. The assessment should look at everything that carers do within their care and role, as well as identifying their needs, including the things they would like to be able to do in their daily life. It should ensure that carers are offered a written support plan outlining any needs, and carers might be eligible for a carer's personal budget for their own use to pay for something that can enhance their well-being while they are caring. The local authority have to have this duty to offer carers an assessment. Sometimes people can see that as quite a threatening thing. They can feel they're going to be tested about what caring they provide and how they do it. But this assessment is not about that. It should be helpful to these carers. And sometimes people just call it a carer's conversation. All carers aged 18 caring for another adult are eligible for a carer's assessment. Next, please, Howard. So the assessment, like we say, is about looking at the impact of caring on somebody's life. And there's lots of research out there. And one of the key things is an annual survey that Carers UK carry out. When we're doing things like this, we use a lot of the statistics from that to show the impact that this has on carers. And these are the key areas. It impacts on a carer's health, their own physical health, emotional health, mental health, their general well-being, their finances, their ability to have social and family life, can affect employment, education and training, and just general life choices. Next, please. So what are the duties of these local authorities when this carers assessment takes place? So they send a carers assessor out to have a chat, a conversation with the carers to determine how the carer feels about their role. They should do this as soon as a carer comes to their attention. They should then look at what support needs the carer has and look at how they meet those needs. And they have a duty to provide information, advice, and promote well-being where possible to prevent the carer from needing support. Next, please. So, the summary of a carer's rights within these pieces of legislation is that carers have the right to choose whether to be a carer or not to be a carer. They have the right to self determine willingness and ability to care. They have the right to be supported to identify which of the cared for needs the carer might be willing and able to support. They have the right to have their views considered by social services when organising care provision for the person they're caring for. Like we said several times, they have the right to this assessment, which should help them identify what they want to do with their own life, as well as measuring how much impact the caring role has on their well-being. They have, if the carer is employed, they have the right to request flexible working. Sadly, the law is not strong enough yet to make employers fit that request or comply with it, but they can ask, and employers have a responsibility to do what they can for carers. Um, Carers have the right to engage in employment and education, training, and in leisure activities. Their rights are defined by the Civil Rights Act and the Human Rights Act legislation, and there's also rights associated with the Equalities Bill. Next, please, Howard. So James has summarised some other rights that carers are entitled to too. So the flexible working options, carers' rights in work come from two sources: statutory rights, contractual rights, which are granted through a contract of employment. Recently, within NSFT, we now have a carers policy. So staff working for NSFT have a policy that they can look at for what support the trust is going to offer them. Um, on this one, there's the right to protection from discrimination, and that's under the Equalities Act, so that they're not discriminated against because of their care and role, and this right comes from being associated with somebody with a disability. They have a right to a free flu jab, and as many of us hopefully will know, during this pandemic, they've also been eligible for a free COVID jab. And that has meant that many carers have been able have not had to wait as long to have their jab as they would have done with the normal government timescales that they set out. Carers have been able to jump the queue a bit because some carers have been younger, and so that in their 20s and 30s, and they've been able to have their COVID jab before that age, the rest of their age group could have. Like we said, they have a right to have an assessment, and they have the right to be identified as a carer. And this is where we need to encourage carers to go to GPs and say, I am a carer. Please put this on my patient record, because they will then be able to be contacted when there is anything come up through public health campaigns, i.e. the COVID jab. Many carers didn't get that letter to say you can go and have this because they weren't registered with their GP as a carer. Carers also have the right to be consulted when hospital discharges are made. So that is a key thing. And James has put in here the piece of policy and legislation called Coming Out of Hospital that states that when somebody is in hospital and due to be discharged, the hospital must consult with the carer. So for other sources of support and evidence and background about these rights, James has recommended the Carers UK site. Next, please, Howard. He's also put in here some other useful resources, and the Norfolk Community Directory I used very recently in my carer role to find a caring agency to come and support me, to support the person I'm caring for. Carers MyNet. And one of the key things on here is something that's been about for a long while that sort of we wasn't as well used in Norfolk, but has been rejuvenated, for want of a better word, is the carers emergency card that Norfolk County Council do. And carers can carry this card in their purse, in their wallet. It's got a number on, and Norfolk County Council hold a bit of a plan. So if that carer was, I don't know, unfortunately involved in an accident of any type, the person finding that card could ring Norfolk County Council and they would know there was somebody at home who needed help, and services, the plan that the carer had set up, could be followed. That is a really key thing that we need to promote more and more in Norfolk again. It's got Carers Matters Norfolk on the list and Carers UK, which, like we say, are a huge organisation that are out there and really behind carers. Over to you, Howard.
Thank you, everybody. Aman's going to tell us about what facilities are available in Suffolk, so that'll be really good.
Thank you for inviting me to come along. Listened intensely to the other presentations, and I made a conscious decision before the event and not to do a formal presentation, just to talk through the services. And actually, I think that's worked out quite well. A lot of what we do will be similar to what's already been talked about, the young carers from Norfolk Carers Matter. So I just wanted to give an overview of what Suffolk family carers do. So this is just around a year family carer, which we've kind of already covered through other presentations. So I just want to really focus on our services and how we broken down into a number of different services. So we look at the information, advice, support and guidance. We've got our information hub, which that's the first port of contact for service users and professionals. Obviously, as professionals with networks that we've built up and links, if you've got individuals and myself as well, obviously feel free to contact your individual contact within Suffolk family carers. But failing that, our information or the first point of contact, it's open 7 days a week. The team can advise carers on any issues, professionals on signposting to who might be the best placed team within the organisation to support you. So I would always suggest, if you wanted to make contact with ourselves and you didn't have a specific person, or it was different to who you might normally contact, come through to our information hub. The contact details at the end of this leaflet. We'll also share this leaflet through at the end of the event. So yeah, I'd always encourage any questions or anything for Suffolk family carers, come through to our information hub in the first basis. So we've broken down into a number of services. As you can appreciate, they all overlink and overlap at some point. We kind of know internally the different services. Sometimes for carers, regardless of how they come into the organisation, we'll try and get them to work with one or two people, even if their needs overlap over the hybrid of services. So we've got the adult services, able to provide holistic care, and their care assessments are also carried out on behalf of Suffolk County Council. We've got the mental health support, which is I should have introduced myself at the beginning. Apologies for that. So I'm one of the mental health and wellbeing team managers. So we provide information guidance for those caring for someone living with mental health difficulties. On this, it says the service is delivered as part of the SAGES partnership, but there's other services within the mental health team which we'll come on to as well. As part of a mental health team, we offer a range of programs, educational sessions, group programs. As you can all appreciate, and I guess with the pandemic, we've had to change the way we do things. So we've started doing courses online. Hopefully, touch wood, and it's to the politicians of the land to make the decision. And obviously, it's everyone's health comes first. But hopefully, I'll be glad when we can get back to some face-to-face programs, obviously within a health and safety remit. Another program, and I've just come out of a meeting with it this morning. We offer support for those affected by someone else's substance misuse, including alcohol, and that's delivered in partnership with Turning Point and ICD. And I guess as I talk through the services we offer, not sure top of my head, but I would envisage we probably work with about double figures in terms of partners to deliver the work, to support carers. We've got over 100 members of staff and 80 volunteers. So for a charity and what we do, I'll say we're mid-sized, but yeah, we've got a lot of partners, and slightly gone off tangent, but every partner will have a different contracting needs. So yeah, we're busy. We also do moving and handling. We qualified occupational therapists providing advice. We do admission prevention, work with the hospital, and there's a further section about hospital work. So that's information, advice, and support. We also offer emotional support. As yourselves in this event, professional carers, a lot of professionals who are in the field are also carers, and if there's any carers on the call, that emotional support is a big aspect of what we do, trying to keep emotional well-being important. So one, for your own health, but so you can provide our best help and support for your loved one or whoever you may be caring for at that particular moment of time. We've got the information, again, lots of different information and resources that we share from different organisations. We've got a talk and support service. This is actually what's the word I'm looking for? One of our jewels in the crown, if that's the correct phrase to use, because this is manned by our volunteers who have come into the service as service users. Some of them, when their caring responsibilities have changed or they feel they've got time, have come up to us, an organisation, asked to get involved. So this is quite something really beneficial. They've got lived experiences. So what our volunteers are speaking to some of the service users as a kind of and we've seen him more vital in lockdown as a kind of a talk and support. says what it is on the tin. So yeah, that's another one of our services. Suffolk Wellbeing Services, and that's actually the Wellbeing Service is a commissioned and funded by NSFT. A number of partners are coming together to supporting people across Suffolk, and I believe Norfolk's also got a wellbeing service as well. So we're part of that in terms of in Suffolk from the caring aspect. Adult advice services, again, working with adults in the community. A lot of our services are similar generically in terms of what we provide, but then we go into specialist support. So we have developed over the years specialist aspects of work. The neurodevelopment differences project, which I was involved setting up, but so I've been moved to another part of the organisation now, and that's working collaboratively with the whole family. If they've got a young person who's got a neurodevelopment differences, and I guess the key aspects of this for me when we got involved in the neurodevelopment differences project was within the wider system, the waiting lists before young people had seen a clinician and been diagnosed or not quite high, not just in Suffolk, around the country. So this was kind of giving that family a bit of a support why they're waiting. As you can appreciate, if you're not sure diagnosis will happen, you're going to have questions, you're going to have concerns, and if you're on a waiting list and you can't get an appointment, then yeah, we offer that kind of a support families who are in that situation. Another specialist project we've got that's really grown from strength to strength is supporting and working with the armed forces and veterans, supporting family carers, serving and veterans. We've got some good links within military bases. As you're probably aware, in Suffolk we've got quite a few military bases. So yeah, that's another specialist subject where we bring our generic support mechanism, but in a more specialist environment. We've got advocacy and the relevant persons representation. Again, these projects are all designed to support family carers, especially some of the issues we've noticed with and it's always been the case, but with the pandemic and the carers having to balance, like we all have, a work-life balance, and some of the situations where we've supported our carers have been quite intense over the pandemic, as you would expect. Okay, we also support family carers with taking a break. We have care breaks, we have a replacement care. The carers assessment also, sorry, my throat's a bit dry. The carers assessment also helps explore. We also have other regular opportunities. I know in terms of our young people services, and the colleague mentioned earlier, we do trips. We're quite blessed to where our offices are in. Being from Wolverhampton, I'm not used to the countryside as much, but our offices are in a lovely part of rural Suffolk countryside. So in the summer we have campovers for young carers, and we do events, get marquees out in our grounds as such, and do a lot of events such as that. Community, we work in hospitals, supporting carers during admission and discharge, and we've also, even though it's not on here, we've supported carers who couldn't visit their loved ones in hospital because of the pandemic. We've got family care advisors in communities who work with GP practices, pharmacies, employees, care homes and care agencies, just to offer another level of support for family carers. Similar, our social prescribing project out and about in the community. For those of you who may live in Suffolk, or that you might at times seen, we've got 2 mobile homes that go around and go to community locations as a kind of drop-in for anyone who wants to come and have a chat, get some more information. I kind of jumped the gun there, the mobile vehicles, and that's supported with Suffolk County Council. We've got our young carer service. I think I am conscious of time, and a colleague talked about young carers earlier, so that was across Norfolk. We don't do anything different. We do the same kind of thing. So yeah, I'll scroll through young carers just because that's kind of already been covered. I don't think there's anything else to add in terms of what we do for our young carers, the Norfolk doesn't do. So yeah, I guess I've come to the end of a quick overview. I guess when you look at what we do, it's actually quite a lot. I've said we've got 100 members of staff, 80 volunteers working with different partners. And yeah, within Suffolk, we've kind of developed into a charity, but to offer that support, working with professionals as well to try and carry on all the good work we're doing across Suffolk. So these are our contact details. Our information open online chat is available 8 to 8. You can get us. So we're not. We haven't got a phone line on the weekend, but we have a web chat. We're quite active on social media as well. So yeah, those are our details. We'll get this sent around at the end of the presentation. Yeah, I guess that was a whistle stop, Howard. Was that okay? Is there anything you want me to pick up on or cover?
No, man, you've done really, really well. We've covered the whole lot. I'm impressed. Young carers the lot. So thank you, Emma. Next up, we've got Eloise from who's going to be talking on behalf of Norfolk Charismatic Norfolk. There's so many different ways these words go round saying the same thing. Eloise, thank you for joining us.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. I'm here today to talk to you about the support that's available for adult carers in Norfolk. Next slide, please. Unfortunately, my colleague Andy hasn't been able to make it today, so it is just myself. So I'm Eloise Ritchie-Spur. I'm a care awareness and voice coordinator. To give a little bit of context, I work for Caring Together and I do a lot of awareness raising in schools and the community and run the Norfolk Young Carers Forum for purely just young carers. I also work on the Charismatic Norfolk adult contract, which is why I'm here to talk to you today. Next slide. We're a charity that covers Norfolk, Cambridgeshire and Peterborough. Our vision is to have a world in which all carers have choices, and our mission is that carers know where they can go for support before, during and after their caring role. Next slide. So to talk a little bit about Charismatic Norfolk, they are the front door service to all adult carers. The Charismatic Norfolk Adult Contract is a partnership of 5 organisations. So that includes Caring Together, Voluntary Norfolk, Carer Voice, Norfolk and Waveney, Charismatic Norfolk, like I've said that twice now, and Norfolk and Suffolk Care Support. Charismatic Norfolk offers support to carers through their advice line, offering emotional support, signposting to various support services, offering like a low-level care assessment and funding through their family carer practitioners. Carers Voice Norfolk and Waveney hold meetings for their adult carers in conjunction with their professionals to meet and share experiences, raising any issues that perhaps can be changed, and sort of another opportunity to meet other carers. Norfolk and Suffolk Care Support offer training sessions to carers. So previously they've offered things like dementia awareness sessions, moving and handling, just to name a few of them. And they can also support carers with completing things like benefit forms. They also consult quite regularly with carers to hear their views. And Voluntary Norfolk obviously work in partnership with Charismatic Norfolk. Next slide, please. So the advice line provides free, independent, confidential support, information advice and signposting. They're a highly skilled team of care advisors that have obviously been trained to provide that listening and emotional support. And for many of them, a lot of them do have that personal lived experience of being a carer. They have an advice line phone number, which is open from Monday to Saturday, and it's free either from a landline or a mobile. And obviously, whilst communicating with an advisor who is providing listening and independent support, they can also undertake a low-level carers assessment. And with that, they offer information and advice on things like support services, carers peer support groups, dementia cafes, other sort of social activities and services, carers' rights, sort of including that employment, accessing health and social care services, social welfare and housing, equipment, things like assistive technology, education, volunteering and training. And it can also help support with emergency planning, and they can share that with Norfolk County Council, and they also can signpost and refer carers to other support services. And the process of referring in can be done either through the phone or through internet, so you can do it online. And they'll carry out a low-level carers assessment over the phone, and if obviously it's an ongoing support that's needed, they can then refer to one of their senior advisors or family carer practitioners who can then further support with them with their assessment. And obviously that situation changes or becomes more complex when the initial referral comes in. The advice line will then refer on to the Charismatic Norfolk community support team, who will then continue to support the carer and their assessment, and continue to do that through face-to-face, either in their home or in the local community. Next slide, please. I know we've already sort of discussed this previously about care assessments, but just sort of very quickly, just to go over it, it is an opportunity for a carer to discuss what support or services they need and look at how their care role may impact their life. All unpaid carers are entitled to a carer's assessment, and it's not about judging how well they look after that cared for person. It's obviously an opportunity for them to look at things that they want to achieve. So to give you sort of a bit of an overview, they'll look at things like emergency planning, the carer's health and well-being, hobbies and employment. And actually the assessment can be carried out whether that person lives with the cared for or not. Next slide, please. Family carer practitioners, as I mentioned before, highly skilled and knowledgeable team. They deliver one-to-one support in the community and can carry out care assessments. They also support carers to access grants and carer breaks. So yeah, I think I've covered all of that one. Yep, next slide. And then there's carers breaks. So this is around making a positive difference to a carer's life, and then being able to improve their physical and emotional well-being. Yeah, and obviously, that might involve support for the cared for at home, for them to be able to have that opportunity to go out into the community and have that little bit of independent life. So as an example, to be able to get access to a carer's break, they'd need to be referred through the Charismatic Norfolk advice line. They will then put you in contact with a family carer practitioner who will share your application with Caring Together. Caring Together will then arrange for one of their team to come out and discuss how best to support the carer. So it could be looking at what the situation is like at home and what it is that they hope to achieve. So an example could be that they want to go to a family wedding, and to be able to do that, they need someone to care for the person at home. And that's where the carer break comes into itself. Additionally, there's also access to a health and wellbeing fund, which can actually be used in conjunction with the carer break. So it could be used, say, for example, that family wedding, they can't get there, that fund could be used for like a train ticket to get there. It can also be used for things like driving lessons, yoga lessons, appliances like vacuum cleaners, that type of thing. Next slide, please. There's also the Carers Selfhelp Hub, which is obviously an online learning tool. This was developed with carers in Norfolk. They listened to what was really important to them and designed a platform where carers can actually then gain that information and practical support. It can include things like caring basics, dementia support, emotional well-being, nutrition and diet, and carer rights. And this can all be accessed through the Charismatic Norfolk website. Next slide, please. Carers Voice Norfolk and Waveney also work with carers to co-produce surveys, case studies, and also gain feedback on what carers need. So, for example, carers can take part in workshops, service involvement groups, and carer locality meetings. The carer locality meetings are attended by carers, Norfolk Matter staff, as well as professionals, which obviously gives opportunity for carers to speak about what's affecting them and what would be useful to support them. They also carry out a lot of consultation work to make changes to their service. Next slide, please. And then there's also some other support for carers. So there's Welfare Rights Unit. They can support with completing benefit checks to ensure that the correct entitlements are being received, benefit application forms, helping with appeals where benefits have been stopped, and representing people at tribunal hearings. There's Mobilise, who are an online community providing regular virtual cuppers, coaching, that type of thing. Carer Wellbeing Packs is something that we've been providing. That includes things like PPE and items to help with general wellbeing. For parent carers, there is Contact, which is a range of support for parent carers, including a helpline, listening ear service, and information and workshops. There's the Family Fund, who provide grants for families with disabled or seriously ill children and young people. Just One Norfolk, who are the go-to health website for Norfolk families. They run online community and additional information sessions, resources and support for parents. And obviously the last one on the list is obviously registering online with your GP, because they have access to other support, and obviously letting them know that you're a carer can also make a difference around accessing your GP. Next slide, please. And that brings us to the end of my presentation. I'll wait until the panel in case there's any questions then, but my details are on the screen if anyone wants to contact me.